Hare Krishna. So we have been discussing fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And last time we talked about the second section, performing Nishkama Karma Yoga frees one from bondage. So seventh verse described how person who is engaged in Nishkama Karma Yoga is never entangled. He is doer yet non-doer. And 10th verse described how he works for the Supreme with detachment. And the goal of his working is purification of the heart. And then 13th verse described about the knowledge of three doers. 13th verse was talking about role of the soul. 14th verse the role of material nature, and 15th verse described about the role of the Lord. So 15th verse spoke about how although the Lord is the ultimate sanctioner, but he does not take responsibility for any sinful or pious activities of anyone. He is simply a witness and the sanctioner. Because the jiva's knowledge is covered by ignorance, ajnanena vrutam jnanam, they are bewildered. Muhyanti. So in this way, although there are three doers, the responsibility lies on the jiva. Okay, so please recite verse number 16.
Sharat Prabhu. Okay. Sumukha
Yes,
Vishnu Prabhu.
I'm just
Okay.
opening.
Okay. Yeah, Sharat Prabhu. Ahead.
15th na Prabhu.
16th.
16. ज्ञानेन तु तद् ज्ञानम् अज्ञानम्
ज्ञानेन तु तद् अज्ञानम्
येषां नाशितमात्मना
येषां नाशितमात्मनः
तेषामादित्यवज्ञानम्
तेषामादित्यवज्ञानम्
प्रकाशयति तत्परम्.
प्रकाशयति तत्परम्.
Translation: when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Purport.
No, don't read purport. Yeah. So this verse is talking about how the knowledge enlightens a person. So ignorance is destroyed by knowledge, jnana, and just like the sun reveals everything. So purport Prabhupada says that perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders unto Krishna. The knowledge is achieved by surrender unto Krishna. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanvan mam prapadyate. So Prabhupada says that when one attains Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him. Just like the sun rises in the daytime, everything is revealed. When there is a darkness, nothing is visible. Everything is just dark. Everything looks like one only, same. Just darkness is pervading everywhere. But when the sun rises, then we realize, oh, there are buildings. Oh, there are mountains. Oh, there are trees. Oh, there are animals. There are humans. There are houses. So in this way, things become crystal clear when the sun rises. Similarly, in the ignorance, the person cannot understand things as they are properly. In the ignorance, person thinks, mistakes one thing for another, and he cannot have a proper understanding. He may consider material world to be permanent or body to be permanent. He may consider himself only to be body. These are all symptoms of ignorance. But when there is a knowledge, then everything is revealed. And then one can see the things in right perspective. When we say that things are revealed means what? We get ability to see the things in right perspective. What is the position of Jiva? What is the position of material nature? What is the position of Krishna? What is the constitution of this material world? What is the purpose of it? So all these things become clarified. Prabhupada says that living entity is bewildered in so many ways. For instance, when he unceremoniously thinks himself God, he actually falls into the last layer of nescience. So what is the last layer of nescience? Thinking oneself only to be God. Even a yogi who is meditating, he may fall into this trap sometimes. He may say, Atma so Paramatma. Atma hi Paramatma hai. So Prabhupada gives an argument. If living entity is God, then how is bewildered by nescience? It's a simple argument. If God becomes bewildered by nescience, then Saturn or God is nescience is better than God, is superior to God. So these are some of the concepts are there in Christian theology, that they say that there is a Saturn and God. They have always fighting with each other, quarrel with each other, fight with each other, and sometimes God wins, sometimes Saturn wins. Like that they say. But this is not at all approved. That means Saturn is almost equal to God or better than God sometimes. But this defies the definition of God. God means he has to be supreme. If the Satan or nescience can defy God, that means he's not supreme. But in our life, in the conditioned soul's life, sometimes it seems that if we give him Krishna consciousness, but sometimes he gets bewildered by Maya or nescience. So it seems that Maya is at least equally powerful as God. So that is not a fact. A living entity gets bewildered by Maya by the sanction of Lord only. Because living entity wants to get bewildered by Maya. So Maya Devi bewildered him. It's not that Lord is not under control. Lord is still under control. As the vision of Vyasadeva is described in first canto of Bhagavatam. What is that verse? Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranahite amale apashyat parusham purnam maya tad apashrayam. When Vyasadeva meditated on the Supreme through his Bhakti Yoga, Manasi Samyak Pranihite Amale, through his unadulterated pure mind, when he meditated on the Lord, then he saw the Lord, Apaschat Purusham Purnam, he saw Purna Purusham, Krishna, Maya Tad Apashrayam. Maya also he saw Krishna, he saw Maya. But Maya was Apashrayam, means she was completely under control of Krishna. So, although sometimes it seems that person taking Krishna consciousness also gets bewildered by Maya. So, is the Maya more powerful or equally powerful to Krishna? No. She's always apashrayam. She's always under the control of Krishna. So, then how she can bewilder a living entity? Because a living entity desires so. He wants to have some different desires apart from Krishna. And that's why Krishna allows Maya to bewilder him. Similarly, Prabhupada gives another example in Bhagavatam that Maya is like a tuition teacher. So now, a father, he has affectionate relationship with son, but son may be very mischievous. So son may not listen to study. So father does, he gives a home tuition. Some of you are doing home tuitions, right? So they give a tuition teacher. And the tuition teacher may very strictly treat the child. And sometimes he may also punish the child for not doing the things properly. Now, the child may think, oh, what is this? She's just a servant of my father. So I can defy her. So she may, the tuition teacher may, so the son may, say that I'll complain about you to father. The tuition teacher may say, all right, go and complain. And father doesn't do anything. When the son complains, father doesn't do anything. And then son is bewildered whether tuition teacher is the servant of father or not. Yes, she is the servant of father, but then how can she still chastise me or beat me? Because father is sanctioning. Why father is sanctioning? Because the son is mischievous. He's not ready to listen. So that's why father is sanctioning. Okay, I will not interfere. You can punish my son because he's very mischievous by nature. Like that. So in this way, the Maya is always under the control of the Lord. Nescience can never overcome the Lord, or Satan can never overcome God. So Prabhupada further says one can know God and one's relationship with God only when one actually meets a representative of God. A representative of God is who? Who never claims that he is God, although he's paid full respects, ordinarily prayed to God because he has knowledge of God. साक्षात् हरित्वेन समस्त शास्त्रैर उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भि. So one can understand God simply by only, not simply, only by when one meets a representative of God and when one learns from him, uh, then only one can learn about God. One can know God. So, but now because he is representative of God, he may be given same respect as God. Uh, so he may be given the equal respect to God as God is given. Sakshat Haritva, he is carrying Haritva. So he is as good as God. Why? Because he represents God. This is the verdict of Samasta Shastri and Sadhi. So it is the verdict of all the acharyas and also scriptures. But Kintu Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya. But uh, he is not God, he is the servant of God. So the qualification of such representative is that he never thinks that he is God. He never claims, although he is given the same respect as God. So just like the king's representative may be given same respect as the king, but he is not a king. Neither he claims himself as a king. He simply acts as a via media. So such a person can actually give knowledge. So finally Prabhupada says, at night we see everything as one in the darkness, but in day when the sun is up, we see everything in its real identity. Identity with individuality in the spiritual life is real knowledge. So this same concept open discussed. Yeah. So there are three doers. One can understand how knowledge leads to liberation, by understanding this concept of having three doers. The living entity is number one doer. If he has knowledge, then he realizes that all bodily activities are automatically carried out by the three modes of material nature. Therefore, modes are doers. Number two doer are three modes of material nature. But the modes are inert matter. However, therefore, they simply carried out the activities which are desired living entity and sanctioned by the super soul. That's why super soul is one who sanctions is doer number three. So in this way, there are three doers. So when we understand these three doers, we become enlightened. And when we understand the interrelations between the living entity, the three modes of nature, the super soul and living entity, then we become enlightened. This knowledge removes ignorance. When ignorance is removed, the living entity takes shelter of the super soul and attains liberation. When one understands who are the actual doers, one gets enlightened and ignorance is removed. What is the symptom of removal of ignorance? One takes shelter of Supreme Lord. And in this way, one attains perfection. Okay, so please, so this ends this particular section. How Karma Yoga frees one from bondage. Performing Nishkama Karma Yoga frees one from bondage. Now, 17th verse onwards, the section begins. 17th to last verse, the section begins liberation by focusing on the Supreme. So, in this section, it is written how a yogi can attain liberation by fixing his mind on the Supreme Lord. But how one fixes the mind on the Supreme Lord? That involves tolerating temptations of material senses and redirecting one's pleasure-seeking propensity from matter to spirit, from outwards to inwards. So these are the need requirements for ability to focus on the Supreme Lord. Tolerating the temptations of material senses, redirecting one's pleasure-seeking propensity from outside to inside. Okay, so please recite 17th verse.
Sumukha Vishnu Prabhu.
तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानस्
तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानस्
तन्निष्ठस्तत्परायणा
तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः
गच्छन्ति यपुनरावृत्तिम्
गच्छन्त्या avrittim
Jnana
jnana niruddha kalmashaha.
Translation. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation.
Yeah. So this verse is talking about how focus on the Supreme leads to liberation. Tad buddhayas tad atmanas. Tan nishthas tad parayanaha. So this says that when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in me, the Supreme, then gachanti apunar avrittim. One becomes cleansed. Dhyana nirdhuta kalmashaha. Nirdhuta kalmashaha means one becomes cleansed of misgivings through knowledge. And then gachanti apunar avrittim. One proceeds on the path of liberation. Avrittim, the word avrittim you don't know. In books, this word is pratham avrutti, dvitiya avrutti, tritiya avrutti. It's again and again same thing is being reprinted, reprinted, reprinted. Same way, material existence is also like that. You know, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam. You know, so this is avrutti. Again and again, material world. Again and again, same birth, old age, disease, death, eating, sleeping, meeting, defending. But when one becomes cleansed of misgivings through knowledge, then one goes beyond this avrutti, one gets liberated from this avrutti. So in the purport, Prabhupada says the whole Bhagavad Gita centers around the declaration that Krishna is Supreme Lord, and that is a version of all Vedic literature. Paratattva, Lord is called as Paratattva. So Prabhupada says Bhagwan or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the last word in the absolute. There are various aspects of absolute, right? One aspect of absolute is to see Krishna everywhere. One is Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, you know. So these are all various aspects of the Lord. But the last word in the absolute is Bhagwan, the supreme personality of Godhead. That is the last word. So Krishna also says there is nothing more than Krishna. So that's how Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya. Krishna says impersonal Brahman is also supported by Krishna. Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Therefore, Krishna is supreme reality. So this is what is spoken in this verse. Prabhupada says in this verse. So after one achieves knowledge that he is different from his body, knowledge which is born of the modes of goodness, sattva sanjayate jnanam, to achieve liberation, he must become fixed in supreme. So yes, in order to become liberated, one should become fixed in the supreme. That supreme is Krishna. Prabhupada is identifying that. When we learn that Lord is impartial and we fix our intelligence on that quality of the super soul, then our sins are destroyed, we become purified, and ultimately we transcend the material world. So we have to fix our mind on the supreme, our faith on the supreme, our intelligence on the supreme, and our shelter should become supreme. By that, one becomes freed from all the sins and become eligible for liberation. So when one focuses on supreme, what would be the vision of people and objects in this world? What will be his vision? So that will be spoken in the next verse. Please recite 18th verse.
Swapnil Prabhu.
Yes, bro. विद्या विनय संपन्ने
विद्या विनय संपन्ने
ब्राह्मणे
Vidya Vinay
गविहस्तिने
Sampanne
ब्राह्मणे
Brahmane Gavihastini
शुनि चैव शुपाके च
सुनी चैव सपके च
Sunitaiva Chapake
पंडिता समदर्शिना.
पंडिता
Pandita
समदर्शिना.
The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahman, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast.
Yeah. Yeah. One minute, I am just. I hope now you can hear.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So this is very famous verse. You all must have heard it how many times. This is the verse to be memorized. So here in this verse, the symptom of a person who is self-realized, who is focused on the supreme, his objects, his vision. Vision is described by Krishna. So he has equal vision of self-realized person. Equal vision of a self-realized person. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, the sage, Vidya and Vinay. Sages, the humble sages, by virtue of Vidya and Vinay. Vidya means knowledge, Vinay means humility. So even there is another Sanskrit saying, Vidya Vinayena Shobhati. Also it is said that a tree which is laden with fruit, it bends down. So in this way, somebody who has knowledge, that means he is humble also. A knowledge which gives arrogance is not actually knowledge, it is simply nescience. But the knowledge, one actually acquires the knowledge, he becomes humble. So, by virtue of this true knowledge, that's why he said true knowledge, not false knowledge which makes one arrogant. Oh, I know better, I am better, others are all fools. This is arrogance. So, calling others as fools, everybody else is fool, I am only the greatest knowledgeable person, Pandita. So, this is arrogance. So, true knowledge person with true knowledge, he doesn't have this arrogance. So, uh, So the person with true knowledge, he he becomes humble, he is humble, and by virtue of that, Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaipa Sopakecha, no, Panditaha Samadarshinaha. He sees all this with equal vision. Learned Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, dog, or dog eater. Such a person is called wise person. So, a Krishna conscious person, purpose says, okay, read purport. Please read purport.
Yes, Prabhuji. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or caste. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge.
Yes,
As
that's
far
it.
as
Thank you. Thank you. So here the concept is that how he sees everybody equally, not on a bodily level. He sees everybody equal as being living entities, pure spirit souls. So same spirit soul and same Paramatma is situated in everybody's hearts, and in this way everybody is equal. So further, Prabhupada writes that Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living entity as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of circumstances of entities. So Lord does not hate anybody, neither he is attached to anybody. So Lord is always a friend, well-wishing friend. How much ever the living entity may be rebellious towards the Lord is equal, and whichever species the living entity may be, Lord is always friend to living entity. He always accompanies living entity. So the learned sage also gets the similar vision. He also understands that all these various forms which we see now, these are simply different dresses of different living entities. And these are outer coverings, but essentially everybody is pure spirit soul part and parcel of the Lord. So Prabhupada says further also, the bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super soul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. In everybody's heart, the same soul and super soul are present, which are of same quality. So also soul and super soul are also similar in quality with each other. So both are conscious, eternal and blissful, but there is a difference between soul and super soul, because the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the super soul is consciousness of all the bodies. So that will come in the 13th chapter. This Kshetrajnam chapi mavidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Okay. So living body, living entity is conscious of only his own body, whereas super soul is conscious of all the bodies. That's a difference. But quality wise, both of them are same. So now, first question is that when we say that the such a person who is learned, really knowledgeable, he is very humble and he is not proud. But we see that Prabhupada, he criticized so many philosophies, so many philosophers. So how do we understand this? He should see everybody equally. So why does he criticize so many philosophies?
Hare Krishna. Actually, one time, one of the there was a reporter, someone have asked Prabhupada that in Bhagavad Gita it is said that Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. So why you are criticizing so much? So Prabhupada said that I see everyone with equal vision, that everyone requires Krishna consciousness. In that vision, I am seeing him.
Okay, thank you. He sees in equal vision how everybody is part and parcel of Krishna, so everybody should be given Krishna consciousness. With that, he seeing to equal vision. Any other answer?
We say like for the sake of preaching, an Uttamadhikari comes to the level of Madhyamadhikari, and then he has to do these things in order to preach or to let people understand.
Yes, in order to preach, when Uttamadhikari comes to the platform of Madhyamadhikari, it is not that he falls down to the platform of Madhyamadhikari. When we say comes, he assumes the role of a Madhyamadhikari. Because before, when we discussed this, people thought, then how can Prabhupada exhibit, he has fallen to the platform of Madhyamadhikari now. So how can he exhibit exalted symptoms? No, he assumes the role of a Madhyamadhikari. It is not that he falls down on the platform of Madhyamadhikari. So I don't know this, small details. I think they are common sense to be understood. So he comes to the platform of Madhyamadhikari in order to preach Krishna consciousness, and he gives Krishna consciousness equally to everyone. Any other answer?
Yeah, like it is said, with devotees one makes friendship, with innocent one preaches, and to those who are envious one keeps distance. So likely how one deals, how a devotee deals.
Okay, a devotee deals in these four ways: loves the Supreme Lord, and then he uh, he makes friendship with devotees, and then he preaches to innocent and avoid envious people. Okay, any other answer? Seeing everyone on equal vision means seeing everyone on the platform of soul. Other philosophers sometimes deny the soul, sometimes God. So there have to be discriminate. Yes. Yeah, so these are all good answers. So even though Prabhupada criticized other philosophers, it was only for the sake of, not out of envy towards them. It was simply to bring them out of ignorance and bring people in general out of ignorance and give them the real Krishna conscious knowledge. So it was out of love and compassion that Prabhupada sometimes, gave very strong, other, not only philosophers, sometimes scientists, sometimes materialistic, Mayavadis, sometimes Prabhupada appear to be criticizing so many people, some other philosophers. But it appears that Prabhupada is simply criticizing everybody. But it is not out of envy or out of superiority complex, but it's simply out of compassion to bring the people on the platform of real knowledge. On the other hand, when Prabhupada saw that there was genuine devotion, he appreciated those acharyas from other sampradayas like Yamunacharya, Ramanujacharya, Kulashekar. Prabhupada personally, used to recite Kulashekhar's so many this thing. Although they belong to another sampradaya, they are not exactly within our sampradaya, isn't it? And at times Prabhupada dealt very cordially also with other people. So while behavior he was very good with people of any place, but any particular philosophy or anything. But when it comes to philosophy, Prabhupada was uncompromising. So that's how he was. Now, another question is that when we say uh, that a self-realized person he treats everybody equally, what do you mean by practically doing that? Of course, one may say I'm not self-realized, so I cannot do so. But even from a practical point of view, how can a person treat everyone equally, and how one should not treat everyone equally? Treat or even think of everyone equally. Let's see. Okay, so what do you do when you see everyone as part and parcel of Krishna? What do you do in a practical application? Okay, one tries to connect them to Krishna. In this way, one treats everyone equally, irrespective of their caste, color, creed. One tries to help everyone to go closer to Krishna. So that is the highest platform of treating everyone equally. Any other way?
While distributing books, we may not discriminate to anyone. We can approach anyone. So this is saying equally, but certainly we have to take care that although they are equally, we are trying to give Krishna consciousness. But if a person is boy or a man, we can talk more to him. But if they are girls or Mataji, we should not. So that time we must take care also that we have to discriminate also in those things.
Yes. So this is acting on our platform. We are not so advanced to see everyone actually on the soul platform, but we are giving opportunity by book distribution. We give opportunity to everyone to take Krishna consciousness. But a Prabhu may not spend more time with Mataji, the girl. Similarly, girl may not spend more time with boy. The girl may spend more time with girls. Boy may spend more time with the boys. But nonetheless, the books are available for everyone. It is not that they are available only for Brahmanas, or only for this country people or that country people. The books are given for everyone. Similarly, prasadam should be given to everyone. Prasadam should be given to everyone, irrespective of rich, poor, uh, which country, which caste one belongs to. Prasadam should be distributed equally to everyone. Yeah, this is another way. So at another page on the lecture, Prabhupada says, because if I take more answers, a lot of time will go. So that's why I'll tell the important concept. Prabhupada says, so the equality is seen on a spiritual platform, but that does not mean that material platform also one sees equality. Prabhupada is to say, so when a person devotee, when self-realized soul, he sees everyone equally, that doesn't mean that he'll go and embrace a tiger. Oh, he's also soul. Let me embrace him. No. So on an external platform, there are distinctions in terms of dealings. But in terms of spiritual platform, when things are related to spiritual platform, one tries to bring everybody to Krishna consciousness. So when a tiger comes, a devotee doesn't have to go and embrace him and say, "Oh, you are also my friend." I deal everyone equally. So I hug one devotee also, and I hug the tiger also. The tiger will eat us up, isn't it? So that's not the way. So when things are material, on a material platform, there is no equality actually. There is a distinction. There is a distinction of caste. There is distinction of gender. Prabhupada used to say how man and woman are equal. Woman becomes pregnant. Man doesn't become pregnant. Isn't it? Man cannot become pregnant. So there is no question of equality. There is a good number of difference between man and woman itself. Even in the species, cow and the man, they cannot be equal. So on a material platform, there are different bodies, different mindsets based on the three modes of material nature. So cows and brahmanas are in mode of goodness, elephant is in mode of passion, dog and dog eaters are in the mode of ignorance. So when the dealings are on material platform, there has to be distinction. That cannot be equality. This artificial equality doesn't help. But when how a person sees on an equal platform, they see beyond the modes. They see beyond the modes, understanding that same spiritual spark is there in everyone. So seeing them equally means understanding that everybody is servant of Krishna, and in this way I am servant of everyone. So in this way, a devotee tries his best how he can bring everyone to the shelter of Krishna. So now the methods may be different to bring everyone to the shelter of Krishna, but essentially his purpose is same for everyone. How he can serve everyone by bringing them to the shelter of Krishna. So that's how when the answer was this, that devotee makes friendship with devotees, because that's how he can bring them closer and closer to Krishna. He gives preaching to innocent people and he avoids envious people, because if he gives preaching to envious people, they will become further envious. That's why he keeps distance from them. In this way, at least their envy is checked for time being. So also another way, as devotees are saying, that there is a prasadam distribution, there is a harinam distribution, there is a distribution of books. In this way, one tries to give opportunity to everyone to become. So this is how one can practically act on the platform of equality. So, but ultimately the concept is that the true knowledge refers not only to knowing the difference between the matter and spirit, but knowing the super soul. And learned person sees that super soul has impartially sanctioned the desires of all living entities, regardless of their present karmic positions. The super soul is also impartial. He also sees everyone equally. Means what? He just sanctions the desires of everyone based on their karmic accounts. He doesn't favor anybody, nor does he hate anybody. This is another way of devotee who is advancing. He also does not become hateful towards anybody. As a caste, as a religion, as a color, as a country, he doesn't become hateful. He tries to see if there are good people in the other caste, he also treats them cordially. If there are good people in other religion, who are God-centered people in other religion, they are also treated cordially by the devotees. Not that just because somebody belongs to another religion, he has to be necessarily bogus person. Or just because somebody belonging to my religion, he has to be a very good person, irrespective of whether he is a ruffian or a good person. So this type of distinction a devotee does not do. So if somebody from other religion is God-centered, God-devoted person, he has to be respected. When somebody from our own religion is not performing religious duties properly, although he may have a rubber stamp of a religion, he cannot be respected. He cannot be, treated in the same way. So in this way, a person knows that, irrespective of his caste, creed, or this thing, he has to be given respect. So Shivananda Sen, Prabhupada will talk about him ahead, that Shivananda Sen, he had a dog, and how he gave mercy even to the dog who was wanting to be devotee. And at the end, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, this dog of Shivananda Sen was delivered. So that time Shivananda Sen offered a complete prostrated obeisance to that dog. He did not think, I am a human species, this dog is a lower species. How can I offer him obeisances? Like that. Because that dog was elevated. He had the special mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that way, one has to become intelligent in order to know when to exhibit this equal vision and when the equal vision should not be exhibited, especially when things are to be related on a material platform. Then there cannot be equal vision like that. Of course, some things one may say, what about giving prasadam? Prasadam is on the spiritual platform. It also helps one to satisfy one's hunger, like maybe on material platform. But in general, there has to be discrimination at appropriate time. At appropriate time, one should learn to see things on equal vision. But when one comes to the platform of Uttam Adhikari, then there is no distinction at all. He sees everybody as a pure devotee of the Lord. Basically, this is the vision of an Uttam Adhikari, who sees everybody to be devotee of the Lord except for himself. Like that. Okay, so please recite 19th verse.
तन्मय प्रभु।
इहैव तर्जितः सर्गो
इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो
येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः
येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः
निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म
निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म
तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थितः
तस्मात् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिताः.
Translation: Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman.
Yeah. So this one talks about Brahman platform. So because a self-realized soul is convinced and absorbed in the quality of impartiality displayed by the Brahman Lord, they easily attain liberation. Because if they see everyone equally, so they can also attain, just like the Supreme Lord sees everyone equally. So that's how they also attain the same Brahman platform. They also become Brahman realized. One of the best example for this equanimity towards everyone was King Rantidev. King Rantidev's first time comes in when Bhagavatam. So he had done fasting for 40 days, and at the end of the 40 days, he was just about to break his fast, and although he was shivering with hunger, but when a Brahmana came, he immediately fed the Brahmana food with to his complete satisfaction. And then he was about to take prasadam, then there was a Shudra came and he gave to him also. He was begging, he gave also. And then there was a Chandala who came. Again he gave the him also. There was only water left. And then the Chandala said that my dogs are thirsty. Can you give some water? And he even gave the water away to the dogs. So in this way, this Rantidev was on the platform of this Vidyavane, Sampane, Brahmane, Gavistin. He was the best example. So, Prabhupada in the purport, he says that as long as one identifies with this body, is considered a conditioned soul. But as soon as he is elevated to the stage of equanimity through realization of the self, he is liberated from conditioned life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in this material world, but can enter into the spiritual sky after his death. So, one of the symptom of equality means symptom of person advanced, elevated on the spiritual consciousness means what? He is well-wisher of everyone. He transcends this particular boundaries of narrow-mindedness in terms of caste, creed, color, nation, all these things, and he tries to do welfare for everyone. In this way, person is advancing towards liberation. Of course, he has to have proper knowledge. What is welfare? Although he may be well-wishing, but what is real well-wishing? That also knowledge he should have. So, such a person is no longer subjected to take birth in the material world, but can enter the spiritual sky after his death. The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Similarly, a living entity is without attraction or hatred. He also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into spiritual sky. So, when a devotee has no particular attachment to anyone, nor hatred towards anybody, he just acts as a well-wisher servant. He acts as a servant of everyone, well-wisher of everyone. Such a devotee is eligible to enter into spiritual sky. And these personalities are considered to be already liberated. So this sameness and equanimity can be experienced on the platforms of Brahman and Paramatma realization and in Krishna consciousness. So those who are on platform of Brahman, they see everything as situated in Brahman. That's how they see everything equal. The Paramatmavadi sees super soul at work, impartially sanctioning the karmic reactions of all living entities. In this way, he sees how super soul is equal to everyone. Paramatma is situated in everyone's heart. So in this way, Paramatmavadi is undisturbed because he understands that living everything is occurring according to the Lord's sanction, Lord's will. Thus, he remains calm even in the ocean of material turbulence. A devotee of Krishna recognizes everything that happens to him as Krishna's kindness, and everything therefore increases his devotion. As mentioned in the by Brahmaji in the 10th canto, Tattenukampam susamikshamanam bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam tudvagvaturvir vidadam namaste jive tayo mukti pade sayadaya bhav. So those who earnestly wait for the Lord to bestow their mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of their past misdeeds and offering Lord the respectful obeisances with his heart, word, and body, is surely eligible for liberation because it has become his rightful claim. So, in this way, they are equanimous. Brahmavadis are equanimous in one way because they see that everything is situated in Brahman. Paramatmavadi understand that everything comes by the sanction of the Lord, and that's how he becomes equanimous towards all situations. And devotee understand that it is certainly everything is the mercy of the Supreme Lord Bhagwan. And in this way, he uses every opportunity to increase his devotion to Krishna. So, in this way, all three of them are actually on the liberated platform. So, now what are his characteristics for such a person? So, they are given in the next two verses. If we cite verse number 20.
Varun Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. न न प्रहर्षेत् प्रियं प्राप्य
न प्रवृषेत् प्रियं प्राप्य
नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य च चाप्रियं
नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य
बुद्धिचेत प्राप्य
चाप्रियं
स्थिरबुद्धिर् असम्मूढो
स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो
ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः.
ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि
ब्रह्मणि
स्थितः.
स्थितः.
Translation: a person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence.
Yeah. So self-realized persons, the symptoms are given here. First one is he doesn't rejoice something pleasant. Second is he doesn't lament for something unpleasant. So third is his fixed intelligence, sthira buddhi. Fourth is his unbewildered or sammudha. So these are the four symptoms of such a person. So the first symptom is that he is not illusioned by the false identification of the body with his true self, Prabhupada says. So Prabhupada talks quite a lot about this thing. Asammudo. Asammudo means not having false identification of his body with the self. He does not think himself to be body. He understands himself as spirit soul. Then Prabhupada says further, therefore, not joyful in achieving something, nor does he lament in losing anything which is related to his body. Because he knows that everything is transient anyways. So he's not joyful when he gains something because it is not going to last for a long time. When he loses something material, body relationship, he understands, yes, it has, anyways, it has to go one day or another. So this steadiness of mind is called sthira buddhi or self-intelligence. Yeah. So a practicing devotee, sadhaka, should attempt to act in this way. However, Prabhupada explained in his purport that such behavior is a symptom of perfect devotee, that is siddha. So siddha, he does not identify with the transformations of subtle body. His happiness and distress do not therefore bring him happiness and distress. So bodily pleasures and pains do not actually bring him happiness and distress. Because he is not bewildered by what happens to him, but instead sees everything as Krishna's mercy, he does not become entangled in the matter. So he is not bewildered by what happens to him, but he takes everything as Lord's mercy. As we quoted this Satyenu Kampam verse. So because he claims he sees everything as Lord's mercy, so he never become entangled in the matter. Now, next verse describe the further symptoms of such a self-realization. So please recite the first verse.
Vishnu Prabhu.
बाह्यस्पर्शेष्व असक्तात्मा
बाह्यस्पर्शेष्वसक्तात्मा
विन्दति आत्मनि यत् सुखम्
विन्दति आत्मनि यत् सुखम्
स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा
स ब्रह्मयोगयुक्तात्मा
सुखम् अक्षयम् अश्नुते.
सुखमक्षयमश्नुते.
Translation. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme.
Yeah. So this another four symptoms are mentioned in this verse of a self-realized person. He knows the science of God, Brahmavid, is situated in transcendence, is unattracted to material pleasure, asaktatma, enjoys pleasure within, akshayam sukham, realizing Paramatma. In this way, these two verses describe the 8 symptoms of a self-realized soul. In purport, Prabhupada quotes Yamunacharya, that famous verse, Yadavadi Maut Krishna Cheta Padaravite, Nava Nava Rasadham Nirantu Udyanta Ranta Sud, Tadavadhi Vatanari Sangame Swarya Mane, Bhavati Mukha Vikara Sushto Nishtivanancha. So basically, he's not interested in sense gratification. He is, he says that he says that whenever I think of sex pleasure, I spit at the thought, and my lips curl with distress. So Prabhupada further writes, a person in Brahma Yoga or Krishna consciousness is so absorbed in the loving service of the Lord that he loses his taste for material sense pleasure altogether. Because he gets a higher taste. Because of getting higher taste, he does not attracted towards lower taste. The highest pleasure is in terms of matter is sex pleasure. The whole world is moving under its spell, and the materialist cannot work at all without this motivation. But a person engaged in Krishna consciousness can work with greater vigor without sex pleasure, which he avoids. That is the taste of the spiritual realization. Spiritual realization and sex pleasure go ill together. So whole material world is called as Maithunadar. It is going on based on sex pleasure. In fact, that's the main motivation for all material activities. But a devotee is not so much interested in that. He's more interested in serving Krishna, and that motivation, that inspiration is so great. So that's why it is said that the lust can be only overcome by great vigor to please Guru and Krishna. If one has that vigor to please Guru and Krishna, then one can overcome lust. Because lust gives such a vigor, no? A person who is carried out, who is on this way of lust, my God, what amount of activities he'll be so active and he'll be so much eager to satisfy his lust in various ways. But a devotee, he has the same vigor to please Krishna, and due to his same vigor to please Krishna, he can please Krishna in a very wonderful way, and he works with super enthusiasm. And that's how, because of getting higher taste, he becomes free from the lower taste. In this way, detachment from external pleasures and focusing inwards, it requires an understanding that material enjoyment is insubstantial and foolish. So that is spoken in the next verse. Please recite 22nd verse.
Ashutosh Shankarshan Prabhu. Okay. Ayan Prabhu. Okay. Bibhu Prabhu.
Yes. ये ही संस्पर्श जाग होगा
ये ही संस्पर्श जाग होगा
दुख योनय एवते
दुःख योनये
आदि अंतवंतः कौन्तेय
अत्यन्तवन्तः कौन्तेय
न ते सुरमते बुद्धा.
तेषु रमते बुद्धः.
Translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the source of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them.
Please read purport.
Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of the material senses, which are all temporary, because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary. Knowing well the joys of the transcendental pleasures, how can a liberated soul agree to enjoy self-pleasure? In the Padma Purana it is said, Ramante yogina anante satyananda chidatmani iti rama padanesu param brahma vidiyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also it is said, Nayam deho deha bhajam loke kastam kaman ratvid ujam ye apo divyam putrakayena sattvam swadhyet
Yasmad Brahma Sokhyam Tvanantam.
anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the 2 liters hogs. Rather, you should undergo penance in this life, by which your existence will be purified, and as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss.
Yeah, that's it. Thank
Therefore,
you.
yes,
So, last verse also it was mentioned how a practitioner uses his intelligence to reject sense gratification. Instead, he seeks pleasure in the supreme. Hmm. So, this verse gives the further, what is the understanding behind rejecting the sense pleasures, sense gratification. What is his understanding? That is mentioned in this verse. Why he should reject sense pleasures? So, because that will help him to replace sensuality with spirituality, like that. So now this verse is very important verse and is to be memorized. Yehi sansparshaja bhoga. So sansparshaja bhoga. Bhoga means sense object. यही संस्पर्श जब सेंस ऑब्जेक्ट का सेंसेस से स्पर्श होता है. स्पर्श does not mean necessarily with the hands. That does not mean that with the legs. Sparsha means any sense, comes in contact with sense object, that is also called as sparsha. Just like eyes are seeing something, although there is no physical touch, but that is called as sparsha. Ears are hearing something, so that is sparsha. The nose is smelling something, tongue, that is sparsha. Tongue और skin से तो direct स्पर्श होता है. So now this sparsha of senses with sense objects, उसका क्या है? दुख का योनि है. दुख योनय एवते. योनि से क्या होता है? What is the purpose of womb? Yoni means womb.
Take birth out of it.
Yeah, giving birth to child. So ये दुख का योनि है. यही संस्पर्श जब होगा, जो भोग मिलता है, जो हैप्पीनेस मिलता है, जो प्लेजर मिलता है, by contacting senses with sense objects, whatever pleasure comes, what is that? Dukkha yonaya evate. It is the yoni of dukkha. Means उसे दुख नाम का बच्चा जन्म देने वाला है. Means what? Every sense pleasure in this material world has counterpart misery along with it. Although there is a appearance of some happiness, but there is also misery. One of the chief reason for the misery is what? Adi Antavantaha. Because it has got a beginning and it has got end. It does not last forever. This is the chief source of misery. Any pleasure we derive in this world, it has beginning and end. It doesn't last forever. So one may want to go to a very nice natural place to see, but how long one can be there? That pleasure remains for only some time, and one has to wind up and come back. One cannot remain there forever. Any pleasurable thing to be eaten, one cannot keep on going on eating it forever. It has an end. So in this way, there is only one This is the chief reason. There are many other reasons why it is misery. So there are a lot of other hard work one has to do. So that is another misery. To objects, sense objects, obtain sense objects. One has to work hard. That is another misery. So in this way, there are various reasons for misery. Chief reason is because it is temporary. That sense pleasure is temporary. So usually the living entity becomes attached when he experiences sense pleasure. He becomes attached to it, and then that's what produces misery. So na teshu ramate buddha. So that's why those who are intelligent, they don't take pleasure into such objects. So instead, he connects himself to the Supreme Lord, and in that he experiences unlimited happiness and loses all attraction to matter. So Srila Vishwanath Thakur comments that just as a person eating sweet meats has no inclination to eat mud, so a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure. So Prabhupada says also in purport, so that's why Prabhupada quotes this. Iti Rama Pade Nasu. Ramante Yogina Anante. So instead of material pleasures, the yogis what they do, they enjoy unlimited pleasure in what? Satyanande, in the absolute truth, in the spiritual truth, Chid Atmani. So Supreme Lord is the source of all pleasure, and instead of trying for temporary insignificant pleasures, uh, the devotee he tries to take pleasure in the Supreme Lord. So that's how Srila Vidyapati, one of the poet whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu adored so much, he has written in one song, Tatala Saikate Vari Bindu Sama Tutamita Ramani Samaje. He says that all the pleasures of this world, they are what? Tatala Saikate Vari Bindu Sama. They are like drop of water in the desert. If one is very thirsty in the desert, but just gets a drop, it is not very satisfying. So a person in the desert, who is thirsty, he requires lot of water. Then he'll be happy, and he requires a continuous source of water, not the limited source of water. Then he'll be happy. Just like we have, anytime we want water, there is water available. So that way, the living entity also wants continuous pleasure, unlimited, uninterrupted pleasure. But that cannot be obtained in the desert-like material world. That cannot be obtained only in the Supreme Lord Krishna. So that's why one should worship Krishna or Rama, who is the source of unlimited pleasure. So Prabhupada says in the last, the more one is addicted to material pleasure, the more is entrapped by material miseries. One tries to get a pleasure, but instead opposite happens. One gets entangled into the miseries. One gets entrapped into the miseries. So he gets opposite result. And more one is trying to enjoy material pleasure, more he'll be entrapped by those miseries. Okay, so please recite 23rd verse.
देवी प्रसाद प्रभु
शक्नोति हैव यः सोढुम्
शरीरविमोक्षणात्
प्राक्शरीरविमोक्षणात्
ग्रामक्रोधद्वैवं वेगं
ग्रामक्रोधोद्भवं वेगं
स युक्तः स सुखी नरः.
स युक्तः स सुखी नरः.
Translation: before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this life, in this world.
Yes. So basically, the sadhaka, he needs to fix this principle very strongly in his intelligence. Origen says that sadhaka needs to fix this principle very strong in his intelligence. What is that principle? Sense gratification equals misery. Although the word is gratification, but it brings misery. So a sadhaka becomes free from material modes by combination of intellectual conviction and a higher taste. These two things, by the combination of these two things, he can overcome the sensual attractions. One is intelligence. He applies his intelligence and analyzes. If I do this, I'll suffer. Although I may temporarily enjoy, but I'll have to suffer in long term. So in this way, intellectual conviction is the first thing. Second thing, along with it, is a higher taste. To different degrees, one gets higher taste. So by the combination of these two things, one can overcome the material modes and the sense gratification tendencies. So what is the result of tolerating sense desires and not succumbing to their pleasures? That is explained in the next verse. So this verse which we recited now. So now it may be that one knows that sense enjoyment brings distress, but the urges of senses continue to exist. Sometimes we get a question, how long I have to keep on tolerating these urges of sense gratification? How long will I have to keep on tolerating these things? How long I have to keep on struggling with my desires for sense gratification? So now Krishna is telling in this verse, how long? Till the end of this life. प्राक शरीर विमोक्षणात्, जब तक हम ये शरीर छोड़ते नहीं है तब तक टॉलरेट करना पड़ेगा. ऐसा नहीं है कि 5-10 साल भक्ति करने से सारे agitations, urges and all the temptations they'll go away and one can be simply peaceful. One has to tolerate till the end of one's life. Because sometimes people ask, कब तक करना पड़ेगा ये struggle till the end of life? That's the answer. Blunt answer Krishna is giving you. Till you die, you have to keep on tolerating this. Well done. So tolerate agitations till the end of life. So Prabhupada says in the purport, if one wants to make steady progress on the path of self-realization, one must try to control the forces of material senses. And there are 6 primary self forces which we know from Nectar of Instruction. Vacho Vegam, the urge to speak. Manasa Vegam, the urges of mind. Krodha Vegam, the urges of anger. Jivha Vegam, the urges of tongue. Udara Vegam, urges of belly. And Upastha Vegam, urges of genitals. These are the 6 urges or forces. They have to be tolerated. So Prabhupada says one must practice to control them before gives up this material body. So this verse is in both ways. One is what? Whole life one should practice to control them. Before the life ends, one should have gained solid control over these urges. This is one way the meaning is understood. Another is also that how long one has to tolerate till the death comes. One has to keep on tolerating. So both way the understanding is. One who can do this is understood to be self-realized and is thus happy in the stage of self-realization. It is the duty of transcendentals to strive strenuously to control desire and anger. Especially desire and anger should be strenuously controlled. So, Kama Krodho Dhavam Vegam. Especially these two Vegas, the Kama Vega and Krodha Vega should be strenuously controlled by the sadhaka, the transcendentalist. He should control these two. So Vishwamitra Muni, he first of all fell prey to Kama and then to Krodha. When Menaka was coming, he fell prey to Kama. When Brahma came, he fell prey to Krodha. So that's it. It is strenuous because it is not easy to control these two Vegas, but one should strenuously try to control them. So, so it's a task, which is a constant task for a self-realized, the person who is walking on the path of self-realization, that we should try to control these urges. So now, Sa Yukta Sa Sukhi Naraha is well situated and is happy in this world. So general conception of people to be how to be happy in this world is, if I engage into sense gratification, that is the way I will become happy. If I have more and more comforts, more and more luxuries, more and more sense gratification, I'll be happier. Krishna tells opposite. One who controls his senses, he becomes happier. Especially one who controls desire and anger, till the end of his life, he he is happy in this world. Such a person remains, even in this world, he has to become happy. He can become happy. Why? Because somebody gives in to the senses, those falling prey to sense gratification leads to misery. That was spoken in the previous verse. So that's why control, sense control, is the key for happiness in this world. Not sense indulgence is the key for happiness. So now tolerating agitations and retiring from external engagements that may give superficial happiness, but when one has this, one has relations happiness within. So that will be spoken in the next verse. It will take tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be able to complete fifth chapter. We completed already verse till 23. So another 5-6 verses are remaining. We will complete them tomorrow. Okay. Thank you all very much. Should we stop here? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki
Jai.
Jai.
Srila
Yeah.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Yeah.
Nice. A liberated person enjoys happiness but actually. 24th. But 24th we are not looking for it. We'll get tomorrow. So tomorrow you can ask us. Okay.